Hi guys, episode 2, the Swimrun Show podcast. Before we get to this week's guest, we've got some breaking news from Birmingham. Lots of the swimrun race directors from across the UK will be at the National Outdoor Expo, doing some great things, swim running. Well, who knows what's going to happen, but yeah, check it out. Last weekend of March, get along to that and you can meet many of us and chat all you want about swimrun and perhaps some related issues too. This week's guest is Simon Griffiths, founder of the Outdoor Swimmer magazine, prolific swim runner, and great guy to talk about a little bit of swimming, a little bit of magazine, but mostly swim run. So here we go. Buckle up. Okay, so we have the founder of the Outdoor Swimmer magazine, Simon Griffiths, with us today. Simon, how are you?
Great. Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you for inviting me onto your podcast.
No problem. Thank you for saying yes. So Simon, I don't actually know if Simon remembers this. We did meet together in 2023, but a long time ago at Parliament Hill Lido, I think Simon was selling the H2 Open magazine. It might have been an Outdoor Swimming Society swim or something. Anyway, I remember him there and I remember the magazine. So Simon, just tell us a little bit about kind of your sporting background, and then a little bit then into the swimming magazine, and then we'll go into swim run, the real subject.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that must have been possibly a December dip in Parliament Hill Lido, and I was there.
Yeah.
H2 Open was what we called Outdoor Summer originally, and then we rebranded about 7 years ago now. So, that is quite a while ago. I swam at school. I was a club swimmer. Grew up in Cheltenham. Swam with Cheltenham Swimming and Water Polo Club. Backstroke swimmer originally. Until I was about 13, 14, and then I kind of stopped. Started again at university. Then did a bit of triathlon in my 20s. Then I went and worked overseas for a few years. Then I came back and started a family. So I didn't do that much triathlon for a while. Joined a masters club in Hammersmith originally, and then the one I'm currently in. When I moved out to Richmond, I swim with a club called Teddington Masters, who I've swum with for more than 20 years now. So that's
wow.
With a masters swimming club. So I did a little bit of triathlon on the way, which I quite enjoyed. But I think as a swimmer, triathlon is always going to be hard because I'm quite a strong swimmer. So I'd normally come out somewhere near the front, and then I'd spend the rest of the race being overtaken by people. And so I'd be counting. I was okay. I'm in 4th place. I'm in 5th place. I'm in 6th place. I'm in 7th place. Okay, I'm not going to qualify for the World Championships. Oh God, there goes another one. And so I did work quite hard, and I did get a bit better at cycling and running. But it was always there was always this. I could never get good enough to really stay with the top guys on the run and the bike in triathlon, even though I could keep up with them on the swim. So eventually I got really busy when I started the magazine anyway. So I said, okay, I'm doing a swimming magazine. Triathlon's all right, but I'll just concentrate on the swimming. And I think at the time there were a lot more swimming events coming on stream as well. And when I first got interested, the only way you could really do an open water swim was as part of a triathlon. And it was through triathlon that I discovered how much I liked racing in open water. And I've raced in the pool, which is fun. Racing in a pool is always a time trial. It's just you against the clock. Whereas racing in open water, it's you against the other swimmers. And there's drafting and there's tactics involved. And I really like that sort of competitive head-to-head aspect of racing in open water. So triathlon originally was pretty much the only way you could do open water races, but then a lot of it started with triathlon organizers often just allowing you to do the swim only, and then this whole Great Swim came along, and and then suddenly there was a load more open water swims you could do.
Yeah.
So yeah, just and that was about the time I'd started the magazine as well. So I threw myself into swimming and stopped doing the triathlon. But when swimrun came along, I thought, oh, that looks fun. I'd stopped running for a few years, so I had to sort of battle my way back to running fitness, which if you've ever taken a break from running, you'll know that's really hard. But what I really like about swimrun, I guess, compared with triathlon, is that sometimes it felt like my race was over once I got out of the water in a triathlon, because I was going backwards from then on. In what I really like about swimrun is you've got this changing dynamic going on throughout the race. And I've had so many races now where, get ahead on the swim, then someone overtakes me on the run, then we overtake them on the swim, overtake them on the run. And you just don't know until you get to the end whether you're going to hold out, you've got enough swims to keep ahead of the runners, or whether they're going to get you on that final run up the hill at the end or whatever. So it's a really, really interesting dynamic as a race in swimrun. But it's also, compared with triathlon as well, I really love the rawness about it. When you come out of a triathlon swim, you often get a carpet to run up, and then you're straight onto a road. And it's a very defined course. The run is I know you can do cross country triathlon as well now, but the run is often on a very flat, straightforward course. With swimrun, it's much more, well, I guess, raw is the word I used, and I think that kind of describes it. You have to deal with what's there. If you have to go up a cliff path, you have to do it. I've done races where I'm kind of edging around the side of a cliff on a very narrow path. You can blame John Yellen for that. Down at Roseland, and it just feels more adventurous than triathlon. Triathlon is a race, and swimrun is an adventure, and I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, that is a very good point for even, well, whether you're just new to it or you've done a few. That when you get out of a swim and swim run, you do look up and think, where am I going? Which I actually really like. There could be arrows, there could well be marshals, but still, it feels like you have to work it out, because you might have got out to the right or to the left, or So it does feel adventurous, which is brilliant. And dynamic is definitely one way, well, the best way I think to describe most of the races. So what was your first swim run then, Simon?
It was Jersey, swimrun Jersey.
Jersey, wow.
Brecker, Jersey. I did the sprint there.
Right.
I was supposed to do it with Helen from 220 magazine.
Oh, yes.
But she got ill just before. And I still had the flights booked, still had so I got onto the Jersey Triathlon Club's Facebook page and posted a message saying, I'm going to be in Jersey. I've got a place in this race tomorrow, and I don't have a partner.
Brilliant.
Anyway, I met this guy, Ian. We did the race together. It was his first swim run as well. I at least had a swim run wetsuit. He had a full, I think, a full swimming wetsuit. And he said, I'm going to cut off the arms and legs to make it a shorty. But then he said he got the knife out, and then he said I couldn't bring myself to hack my wetsuit to bits. And it was a really hot day.
Oh dear.
And he was running in his full wetsuit. And so we were doing all right at the beginning, but he got hotter and hotter. And I don't know if you've been to Jersey, but it's a spectacular course with some really, and we only did the sprint, thank goodness, but it's got some really steep climbs when you come out. It was a blazing hot day. And yeah, he really suffered with the heat on that. Because he couldn't even unzip it really.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, the first time I'll remember the first time I took scissors or a knife. I think it was scissors to a wetsuit, to neoprene. It felt wrong, but it needed to be done. I'm glad whenever I did that, it was the right thing to do. And that once you've done it once, you get scissor happy, and you can cut all sorts of bits off. So Jersey, I've not done it. It's definitely on my list. And then so that was a team. So I know last year you did quite a few team events. Have you done any solo events, Simon?
I don't think I've ever done a solo.
Wow, good man.
No, I don't think I have.
That's amazing. Okay.
No.
And solo and team, they're both very valid. They have their place. Solos are great for people getting started. And a lot of people in the recent years start on solo. But it's cool to know that you've only done team. So are you interested in doing a solo perhaps, or you just want to stick with teams?
I haven't done a solo. So, I mean, I know there are some events where it's solo only. I think the one you're lining up
in Liverpool
next year. So yeah, that does looks like a fun and tempting format. But I do really like the teams element, the doing it together element of swim run. Realized how much it adds to your race to do it with somebody else. I'm sure there are some people out there that they're kind of, I don't want to do it with anybody else. They just slow me down. And actually, I find that racing with somebody else just makes me go faster. I mean, we raced together, and I mean that was actually the first time I ever done tethered swimming, and you can swim with somebody who's a slightly different pace to you, but when you're tethered, you don't even notice they're there, but it just keeps you together. It stops you worrying about anything. They're there. And then the tethered running, I didn't appreciate until we actually tried it, that it does make a difference. And it just adds that 1 or 2% to your speed, or takes 1 or 2% off your effort level, and just makes transforms the running experience.
It was.
And you can swim with somebody who's slightly faster, run with someone who's slightly slower, and then you work together as a team, and you both do better than you could do on your own. I really like it.
Yeah, no, that was brilliant. We raced at the Great Swim Run.
Great North Swim Run.
It was middle. Yeah, that was a Great North Swim Run in the Lake District, middle distance. And it was really good. Simon was faster swimmer for sure. I was slightly faster on the run, and we worked together and ended up on the top of the pile. There was a little to and fro on one of the runs, but in the end we did.
I think they were faster runners than us. They came past us on the big run, and then the 3 swims at the end was to our advantage.
You destroyed them.
Well, you caught me through the run, so.
So towing on in the runs, don't be worried about that, guys. It is. I know if it's technical ground, you probably don't want to be doing it too much. But the first time I tried it was in an adventure race, and I realized actually, this works quite well. So that's another good thing about racing a team, towing each other when needed.
Well, and it's more than that though. It's that anytime you do a race, you kind of got moments when you're feeling really strong, and then you get moments where you think, oh my God, this is hard, and why have I signed up for this? And mostly when you're racing in a pair, the other person isn't experiencing that at the same time as you. So sometimes you're the one that's saying, come on, we've got this, we can get through this, we'll do this together. And other times it's the other person saying to you, don't worry about it, just take your time, we'll get there, you're going to feel better in a minute, have something to eat, have a drink, we'll just slow it down a little bit until you feel better, then we'll go for it again. And it's all that kind of reassurance you get from racing with somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. So let's just rewind a little bit. So the Outdoor Swimmer magazine, that's a published in paper and online magazine, and you list all the swimming events and I believe the swim run events as well. Is that right?
We have. We try to list all the UK swim events that we can find, and then we take a selection from around the world. We couldn't list every event globally. There's just too many, but we try to get a comprehensive UK listing. And then there was before the pandemic, we started an insert in the magazine for swimrunner. We called it swimrunner, outdoor swimmer, swimrunner. We just did it as an insert in the magazine, and we listed swimrun events in that. Then in the pandemic, we actually had to stop printing the magazine because everything stopped. It was
I remember.
And then what happened was, I don't know if you can remember, but outdoor swimming suddenly became really popular in the pandemic because all the swimming pools were closed. So I think it was after about 4 or 5 months, it was okay. There's enough people swimming again now that we can go back to print. Our advertisers are ready to support us again as well. But there were no events happening, and nobody wanted to organize an event because they didn't know what was going to happen. So there were no swim run events lined up. So we just came back with the swimming magazine, and we didn't do the swim run. And then the following year, that we were in lockdown again in January and February, and then there was people put on some events, and then nobody knew whether they were going to happen or not. And then some events happened and some events didn't, and some were planned and got cancelled, and some people lost their money because they'd entered events. It was just a mess. I think that was 21 or 22. I can't.
20 what? Yeah.
So I think it was only really last year that we had a proper year of events where we could be confident that they were going to go ahead and not get messed up. So we'd had such a break from publishing the Swimrunner supplement that essentially we just moved. So we've got a website, swimrunner.world, which is mainly reviews of events I've done, plus some, my thoughts on training and preparing for a swim run, mostly from the bias and perspective as a swimmer coming into swim run rather than a runner coming into swim run. And obviously I've done a lot of writing about swimming and outdoor swimming and open water swimming, racing, and then how to use everything you learn from outdoor swimming in a swim run scenario. So we've got event listings on there as well. But it's quite a basic website, but we try to get enough information on there that, to get started in swim run and find the events you need.
Yeah. Okay, great. And just in terms of print magazines, is it steady, or are your sales growing in terms of the actual physical copy of the magazine?
Yeah. Again, I said 2023 was a difficult 22, 23 cost of living crisis, Russia invading Ukraine, prices of everything went up. We had uncertainty around paper supplies. And actually, the printing machines are quite energy intensive. Not that we own any printing machines, but there were energy surcharges on printing. And then, I think people became very cost conscious, and a magazine is a luxury. So there was definitely a slowdown in sales of print magazines over the past 18 months. But interesting, what we've found is we started what we call Outdoor Summer Extra, and we put all the content of the magazine on our website. And so we've created a digital only option on our website, but you can, through that same option, you can subscribe and get the print magazine. And surprising how probably a third of the people that sign up to that sign up for the print magazine as well. Right. And when we do reader surveys, and there's probably reflects our demographic to an extent as well. But we ask people, how do they prefer to read content in print, on a website, or through our app? And the majority, especially for long form content, in-depth articles, the majority say they prefer to read that in print.
I certainly do. Yeah.
There's certainly a desire amongst swimmers, and probably in the population in general, to have that print reading experience, which I think is much more relaxed and engaged reading style than when you read on a screen, which tends to be, okay, I'm just going to scan this for the information I need, and then I'm going to move on. There's a more functional approach to reading digitally, and more of a relaxed and an enjoyment approach to reading in print. I think we try to cater for both. So we, some of the short form, newsy type of stuff, very information centric stuff belongs on our website, and some of the longer form, more in-depth content belongs in a print format where you can really get properly engaged with it.
Okay. Sounds, well, I can relate to that. Reading on paper is definitely more relaxing the amount of time you're on.
Well, and studies show you recall more as well. You remember more of what you read in print than online.
Okay.
So,
okay, good. Now, Simon, we've got a few questions from the audience, from the listeners, which you will try and answer. And they're nothing complicated, I don't think. So, first off, from Tony, how do you train? Well, maybe do you train for transitions? But how do you train for transitions in swimrun?
So I don't specifically train for transitions, but what I think is really important in swimrun is, as well as having swimming and running fitness, I think it's having some sort of overall general fitness and mobility, flexibility. So I try to, once a week, I try to do a kind of core abs workout type of thing. And then once a week as well, I try to do a sort of body weight and a little bit of weights, a sort of general fitness workout with sort of pull-ups and squats and press-ups. And I do a bit of stuff with bands as well. Just so it's just an overall sort of strength and conditioning workout. And I mean, ideally I'd do that twice a week, but realistically it happens once a week. And I think that's a real big help when you're doing swimrun, because you never know when you're going to have to haul yourself over rocks, or you're going to have to, clamber over big boulders. So I think anything that you can do that helps develop or maintain and develop your overall general athleticism is going to be a good thing in swimrun.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Thank you for that question, Tony. Good one. Definitely. Also, I suppose on top of that, you might have some gear to bit of gear admin in transition, and that's really just practicing. Sometimes,
I mean,
we work things out on the race.
I don't use paddles when I race.
Oh yes, I was going to. Yes, good. Yeah, thanks for that.
I don't use paddles when I race. I have tested. I have tested swimming with paddles, swimming without paddles, and I am over short distances slightly faster with paddles, but my arms get really tired. And so I haven't tested it over. Sometimes with swim runs you might be adding 4, 5, 6 kilometers of swimming. I haven't tested swimming with paddles for that distance. I'm pretty certain that I don't have the strength to maintain the speed using paddles for that length of time. And they also just annoy me. So
Right.
I prefer to swim without, and that does make when you reach the end, you don't have to faff around with paddles. So I think there's a saving there, and I can't bear them clunking about when I'm running either. So I know that they're very popular, and I know most people use them, but I'm an advocate for not using them.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you've reminded me you don't use paddles, because it was on my list of things to talk about, because that's another brilliant thing about swimrun. You can choose what suits you best,
Yeah.
and Simon knows his swimming best. He's obviously a very good swimmer, and he knows what works. In terms of, it might be something to do with your cadence is just so. Well, whatever, but whatever works. I think I had to convince you to use a pull buoy.
Yeah, so I do now use the pull buoy. I have raced quite a lot without them as well, because I do really like the idea of being as simple as possible in a race.
Yeah.
So, but using the pull buoy does stop me kicking my legs so much, and I don't think that's so much a fatigue thing. It's probably better for the person who's swimming behind me that I'm not kicking so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think when you are swimming with trainers, they do tend to drag a little bit. So yeah, the pull buoy probably over the longer distances probably helps. I'm moving that way, that the pull buoy is probably a benefit. But the paddles, I know some people swear by them because, they say, okay, you swim with a lower heart rate when you're using your paddles. It slows your cadence down. It keeps your, you rely on your strength rather than your fitness a bit more. I just find them really hard to swim with, especially if the water's a bit rough. And I also raced with somebody once who had the strap split on the paddle halfway around, and then he was stuck with a paddle that didn't work in the middle of a swim. It's like, okay, now what are you going to
do? Yeah. No, it's the message on simplicity is something to strive for, is good, and I've always liked that. There's definitely for the swimmers out there, guys, and I think there will be more swimmers maybe listening to this episode with Simon on. The paddles, only even for me, who I'm kind of an equal swimmer runner, I feel like I'm a swim runner, but I'm not amazing either. They make it like I'd say a 3% difference, which isn't a lot when you also factor in I do lose a bit of time in transition because I've got paddles. I might lose some time in cabbing down, taking wetsuit down, taking the vest off if it's a long hot run. If I've got paddles on, might lose some time in an aid station because you've got all the, so you're not as dexterous. So if you're thinking I need to buy paddles and a pull buoy before my first swim run, you definitely don't. And it's a good way, you will learn what's best for you over time.
I think another thing about paddles is if you are going to use them, you should really train with them a lot. And because I still also race a lot of open water swimming where you're not allowed to use them, I don't want to move all my training to paddles training, because I can't use them in the other type of races I do. So I think if you were only doing swim run, and swim run was your absolute main sport and main focus, then I'd probably suggest doing the training with paddles, testing yourself with paddles, testing yourself without paddles, and finding what works for you. I think the other thing I worry about a little bit, because this happens to me, if I use paddles a lot, then I start to feel the strain in my shoulders and my elbows. So again, I don't want to do excessive amounts of training with paddles for that reason. But again, everyone's different. If you can sustain the load and it doesn't cause you any problems, then then do what works best for you.
That is sound advice from Simon there. That was a great question, Tony. We went off on a bit of a paddle tangent, but I think it's relevant. Next question from Sue. What socks do you wear, Simon, for swim run?
I have just got a regular pair of running socks, an old pair of running socks.
Right.
They're So I've tried a couple of different things. I've tried the long compression socks, but I found them uncomfortable. I didn't really like those. And I've tried really short ones, but I found that grit and stuff got inside. Quite often you're wading out of the sea and on a beach and you get sand in them, and then sand inside your shoes when you're running isn't a good thing. So the socks I wear an old pair of running socks, and they're about well, they're not short and they're not long, mid-length, mid-calf.
Yeah, mid-calf.
Basic running socks, nothing special. Yeah. I sometimes put a bit of Vaseline on my feet before I put the socks on because I find that helps avoid blisters.
Cool.
But yeah, nothing special with the socks.
Yeah, it comes up quite a lot on the Facebook groups, which it's pretty simple, really. It's what you're normally running is a good start, and if you don't run already, just don't. Cotton isn't generally advised, but all the kind of elastine and those kind of materials, the trail running socks. And then the only choice then is how long you want it. And as Simon said, I'm pretty much the same, short to mid-calf. I did wear some long compression ones on one long race because I had a calf injury, and they were great for that. But I probably would go with shorter ones generally. So next question from Jeffrey. Do you prefer a swim race or a swim run race?
I like both. It'd be hard to say what I prefer.
There's only one answer.
Yeah, all right, swim run. No, I think they're different. You do them, I do like, and obviously it depends on the race. It depends who you're racing. But a swim race where you end up kind of in a head-to-head situation with a group of people who are about the same ability and speed as you, when it can be a nice pack race where you don't know who's going to go and do a mad sprint at the end, and can you out sprint them at the end, and that can be really exciting and really fun. And then swim run, you rarely finish. You sometimes finish on a swim, but it doesn't normally come down to a sprint finish in the swim. You've got that whole dynamic of, you might be better in the swim, they're better in the run. You might be better on uphill, they might be better on downhill. So you've got that whole changing dynamic. And I guess the other really nice thing about swim run is when you're doing a swimming race, although you're often in a really nice place, you don't tend to see that much of it. But when you do a swim run, quite often they take you up into the hills. It can be like on the mountains in the races you organize, or it can be a cliff path. And you running along a cliff path and you're looking down into the bay. You say, okay, we're going to be swimming there soon. And you've got that real. You see much more in a swim run. So that's a really special thing about swim run. You see the swims as before you do them, and then you look back and you see what you've just done. So that's a real feature of swim run that I like.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. So basically, swim run is better.
I'm not saying that.
No. So yeah, they're both good, honestly. So last question, and we had this. I wanted to come back to this question from Andrew because I'm going to probably ask most guests this one because I don't feel like we have the best answer, and maybe there isn't the best answer, but here it is. Do you use a GPS watch for swim run? And if you do, which one? And do you have an opinion on the best GPS watch for swim run?
I don't I normally take my watch off for racing. Because I don't know. It's a part of the minimalist stuff, I think. I try to cut down the kit completely. So I have raced with people who, so one guy I raced with, he was very much a data person, very much a technical person around his approach to racing, and he would, I don't know which, he had a Garmin of some type. I don't know which one. He would download the race into the Garmin before we did it, and then he would say, okay, we've got 1 kilometer to go before the next swim, 500 meters, get your goggles on. So I can see that there is something in having that knowledge of where you are on the course, just so that you can prepare yourself mentally. Okay, we've still got 5K to go on this run. Let's cool it down a bit, and knowing where everything is, which is great. Except quite often courses get changed when you're out on them.
True.
So the number of races I've done where, that swim's been cancelled, or that swim's been shortened, or you've got to go on a diversion here, and then suddenly, if you're relying on your watch, it's all messed up. So I can see pros and cons. I like the minimalist approach. I do write the numbers on my hand, how many kilometers each swim is, but as I said, quite often it's changed, and I have no idea where you are. So,
yes.
So there's a bit of that mystery, magical mystery tour on some swim runs, and if it's changed a lot, the watch isn't going to help you anyway. And I know some people like to then look at the data afterwards, and they keep their records for the year. I mean, you can add that manually if you really want, but I tend to race without. But I think any of the Garmin's that you can, if you're dead, most of current sport watches, you can probably download the routes onto. Most organizers make them available, I think, beforehand. I guess it can be helpful if you get lost. Luckily, I haven't had that yet. As an extra safety precaution, maybe that's a good idea. A lot of the races in the UK are coastal ones anyway, so you just got to keep following the coastline.
Yeah. They have definitely more limited in swimrun, aren't they? The usefulness and probably not quite aligned with the original format, if you like. Because and the fact that courses do get changed often is a factor. That could potentially create extra stress. You've taken the time to download the map and all this, and you've put a bit of time and effort in, and then it all gets changed, and you potentially get negative karma or something going on. Whereas if you let's just have an adventure and see what happens.
I think the other thing is I do like to race based on how I feel. And I have sometimes worn the watch. I've done it a couple of times. I've been looking at it, and oh my God, we're going really slowly, because you might be going uphill, or you might be tired, and you're wearing a wetsuit, and you think, okay, I can normally run at this pace, and now all of a sudden I'm running a minute per kilometer slower than I should be. And that is part of the nature of swim run anyway, because the conditions are tough. You've just come out of a swim, you're running up a mountain, you're not going to run the same speed that you run in training. And then if you look at the watch and it tells you, you're doing 10 minutes a kilometer, and you think, I'm supposed to be running, I can walk this fast. It can throw you off. So that, again, that's preference. Some people really like it, and they like to monitor their heart rate. What's my heart rate doing? Am I in the right zone?
Yeah. So there we go. Good, a nice, refreshing, a different answer to the a couple I've had, and I expect you'd like a skins swim run, Simon. Basically, not maybe a pull boy.
Well, I actually get quite, if I stay in cool water, I get cold quite quickly.
Right.
So I'm more in open water. I do sometimes race without a wetsuit, but I more often race with a wetsuit when I'm swimming.
Okay.
So no, I'm not that.
Okay. Not that minimalist.
No, if the temperature was right, hokey cokey last year or the year before, it was such a hot day that I was desperate to get out of my wetsuit at the end. But the sea was still only 15, 16 degrees, and some of those swims, when you're getting tired, you can get cold quite quickly, and that's going to affect your running afterwards. So unless the water was sort of 18 degrees plus, I think the wetsuit is a really good idea.
Yeah, agree. So last one, and this is just from me. Have you got any lined up for 2024? Any races?
I haven't confirmed any. There's I'd quite like to go back and do Great North Swim Run again. I like that one. I did really enjoyed your event, Mike. It's just, you're so far away.
That is a problem.
Can you move those mountains a bit closer to London for me?
Okay, I'll speak to a few people.
Yeah. And there's going to be a new one down on the south coast this year, the Studland Swim Run. I'd quite like to have a go at that one. That's only a 2-hour drive, not a 6-hour drive. So that is a problem with swim run that well, not a problem. It's a feature of swim run that they're often in beautiful locations, and those beautiful locations tend to be quite a long way from London. So you have to be prepared to travel a bit to take part. And it's always worth it. It's always worth it when you get there, because being in those locations is part of the attraction of doing swim run, I think. But it does add to the expense and the admin of doing these things.
Getting there. Totally.
I have to check the swimming calendar as well, because I do have to get in the swimming races as well.
Busy calendar. No, there's loads going on. And the swim run calendar is getting absolutely chocker. There's over 25 races in the UK. Studland, a new one for this year, and the Isles of Scilly are coming back. There's all sorts going on. So wherever you live, guys, there's probably a swim run not too far away. And Scotland's dropped a little bit, but it'll come back. Thank you, Simon.
I did 6 last year.
6 last year. Go on then, rattle them off. What did you do? Which ones?
Well, I did that actually. Well, I say there's none near me. There is one that's 2 kilometers from where I live, and that's the one that Jude Palmer puts on at Ham Lake.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So that was a lovely little. It was a 5 kilometers in total, I think. 4 swims, 4 runs. And it's got a cargo net that you have to scramble up, and it's got a 2-meter jump that you have to jump off to get back into the lake.
Nice.
And it's really, really super local for me. So that was great. So I did that one. Then Great North Swim Run I did with you.
Yeah.
Wales. I did 3 events in Wales. So I did Love Swim Run Llanberis, and then the day after I did yours. So I don't think you're on consecutive days this year, but
we're not this year, no. But you did it back to back, didn't you?
I did
there was a few,
back.
maybe 5 people did a back to back. Llanberis and then Talia Clun. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was hard. Getting up and doing a race. That was really hard.
And you won the team category, I think. Is that right? Mixed.
I think we did.
Lucy.
I was very grateful to get to the end of that one. My legs were ruined, especially as we did the Great North Swim the weekend before. So it was.
Oh yeah.
It was 3 races over 8 days. So, and then I did swim run Wales down around Tenby, which was fantastic. Except they had to cut some other swims because the wind was so strong. I'm sure we would have won that if we'd had the final swim, but we didn't. So we only came second. And then Buell, which I've done twice now, the Buell water swim run with as keen as mustard.
Yeah.
Which is a nice, it's a sort of mid-tier event in terms of the toughness of the challenge. I think there's some events that are much tougher out there, and that makes it a very accessible one because it's in a lake, so there's calm water, tends to be calmer water, but it's actually harder than you think when you look at it. There's a 7K run with a hill in it that never seems to end, which nice. Seems surprising for the middle of Kent, but that's a really nice event. I've done that a couple of times now.
Cool. That's a good tour of swim running last year then. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Cool. Okay. Well, Simon, thank you very much for your time. Been great to talk to you about swim run and a bit of swimming.
Yeah.
And hopefully see you.
You've been gradually disappearing because you haven't put any lights on, so you're sitting there.
I'm going, I do look like a ghost. It looks quite odd, actually. I must turn the light on. Okay, I get the candles out now. So,
all right.
Thanks, and hopefully see you in 2024.
Definitely want to do some more swim run this year.
Brilliant. Good man.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Nice one. Great. That was very enjoyable chat with Simon Griffiths there. A different perspective, perhaps, in terms of gear and watches, and Simon's background more from just swimming. So, really cool to chat to Simon, and I'm sure you'll see him on the race circuit in 2024 if you've signed up. There's a lot of races going on this year in the UK. So, and some of them will sell out, no doubt. So don't hesitate. What else is happening? Well, first off, thanks for the questions from everybody. We had Sue, we had Tony, Andrew, and Jeffrey. Great questions there. Sometimes it's nice just to chat through some of these ideas rather than just read it on the internet or YouTube or Facebook or whatever it is. But having said that, there is a lot of content on those channels with regards to swimrun. So I'll put some links in the show notes with where you can find some of the common questions and perhaps answers. So in terms of questions, we've got Michael Lamel next up. So if you have a question for Michael, the co-founder of Urteleu and adventure racer, all-round great guy. If you've got any questions, go to weswimrun.org/podcast. You can send them in there. And thanks for listening. Speak soon. Well, listen soon. I don't know. Pod soon.